Let's wrap this thing up. I want to talk about the teams that have changed your opinion the most on them since the end of the season, whether it was via transfers, via coaching changes, via players coming back, via players improving, additions that they've made in the offseason. Fanta, I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to let you start, and I think I know who you're going to say number one.
Wow. I'm probably going to go totally unlike what you thought I would go with, okay? I'm going down south for this one. Ooh. I'm going to the SEC. Ooh. And I am very impressed with what the Musbuffs in Arkansas have done here thus far in the transfer season. You knew that you're going to lose Moses Moody, and then there are questions that get raised because if you look at the recruiting rankings, Arkansas is in the back half. Like, well in the back half of the SEC in terms of their incoming recruiting class. So, Arkansas is in a war with a couple other schools for Chris Likes, the Miami point guard. Mm-hmm. That's a big-time get for Arkansas to be able to bring him into their equation and have him run that backcourt. But they were not done there. You get a Pittsburgh transfer, an Audis Tony, who is a big-time scorer, who can beat you in a lot of different ways. I've watched him play a couple times. I've been impressed with him. And then you bring in a South Dakota transfer that the nation doesn't know as much about, but his name is Stanley Umude. And Umude had a terrific season, averaging well over 20 points per game. Some people thought maybe he would try to test the waters or go international. Like, the kid's going to be a bucket wherever he ends up playing. I could see him going overseas and having a great career. But Arkansas just brought in a trio of guards that combined last year in this sport to average nearly 52 points per game. And I see what Eric Musselman's doing at Arkansas, and I love everything about it. I think that the Razorbacks, like, they made the Sweet 16 this year. It was the first time in a long time that Arkansas had made the second weekend of the NCAA tournament. And in my opinion, they're not done. Like, I think they're going to be a program. What Texas Tech is to the Big 12 under Chris Beard, we'll see if it continues. But what Texas Tech was to the Big 12, Arkansas will be to the SEC. It would not be surprising to me that sometime in the next 3 to 5 years, the Arkansas Razorbacks make a Final Four. That's how high I am on this program going forward. And I thought that the transfer additions that they've made thus far have really changed my perception of who they are going forward. I have others, but I'll start with Arkansas.
I like it. I'm there. The must bus, baby. Jump on board. Dave, where you at? Where you at? Who you got number one on your list?
I want to say they're number one. I'm just looking forward to seeing what they look like. I think Kentucky will be interesting to watch next year. Cal brought back both his past assistants. I'm very familiar with Orlando Antigua, and he is an amazing recruiter. And I know that was like one of the bigger, I don't want to say letdowns for Kentucky this year, is their recruitment. More or less just like the players that they brought in didn't, do what they normally do as freshmen. Like, they usually find these great freshmen that come there and just do amazing. So I think Antigua and Ron Coleman coming back is like super big. And with Kellen Grady and Oscar Sheboy, I kind of feel like I'm excited to see what they look like.
Baby, big shit,
man. Can't wait to see what my young guy looks like over there in Kentucky. But I think Kentucky will be very interesting. And I personally don't think that. Yes, and I personally don't think that. Granted, you have a bunch of these guys that entered the draft. I think they'll come back.
Yeah,
I just feel like they didn't have the greatest. There's maybe like one or two guys that can stick, possibly, but not like first round. So like they'll have the opportunity to come back, and with a majority sophomore team, adding those pieces and the staff pieces, I think they'll be all right. They'll be way better than they were this past year.
Yeah, I mean, getting the shooting in there, I think, is going to be a big thing. How long have we been saying that they don't have enough shooters? Kellen Grady, sharp. DJ Frederick was maybe the best shooter, like one of the best shooters in the country. Yeah. I think it's gonna. There's two things I want to see Kentucky do. The big one is get. Is it Ty Washington? The point. I don't know.
Yeah, it's that time.
That's how he pronounced. Yeah. So I think getting him in, which seems like that's the way that it's going to end up going. I think getting him is huge because Nolan Hickman just decommitted, so they need him. And I also think it would be important to get one of Keon Brooks or Isaiah Jackson back. Honestly, I kind of think Keon Brooks is more valuable.
Exactly.
Having that kind of like playmaking combo forward presence next to your boy Big Sheeb with the shooters that they're going to be able to have on the floor. I love Keon Brooks. I think Isaiah Jackson is probably a lottery pick. If you're a lottery pick, I think you probably should go.
Gotta go. Yeah.
Yeah. Keon Brooks to me is a guy that can come back and have a great year and be like a PJ Washington kind of, go from being like a kind of like a second round, maybe undrafted, maybe two-way kind of a guy to being like a legit first round top 20 pick. Like I think he's really, really good. So
yeah, I liked him this year too.
Kentucky ahead of my list. You know who else I had on my list? Number one was a place where one of the point guards that left Kentucky, Devin Askew, ended up at Texas. Yeah. Texas also brought in Timmy Allen, who averaged 17 a game last year.
Yes,
at Utah. He also brought in Christian Bishop, who is like that perfect kind of lob catching, rib running, shot blocking, super athletic five that Chris Beard is so good at working with. And oh, by the way, they also brought in Chris Beard and a killer coaching staff. They're still in the mix for a lot of guys on the transfer market. They got Andrew Jones coming back. They got Courtney Ramey coming back.
Do they bring Mac McClung there? So that's what they remember. I was like, where are the shots?
Speaking of the NIL stuff, like Mac McClung would be a million.
Oh
my gosh.
Oh.
Some people would just like clean up. And I kind of think it wouldn't matter if they were high level, like Power 5 or not.
Oh, no, that's exactly it.
I feel like some people are just going to clean up with this because, I mean, it's that they're purchasing you. They're trying to buy you. Yes. They're just selling you. So,
I mean, Tristan,
you know what?
If Tristan Jass can make like millions of dollars a year doing basketball videos, like imagine what Mac McClung, because he's actually good. He just doesn't have that cool curly hair.
And Jordan McCabe and his stuff that he does, like that's what I'm saying. Guys like that do a really good job outside of the game for the most part, outside of their team and college team. Even in doing a good job, they'll do great.
Yep.
But you know what? To your point, college basketball, and a lot of people would roll their eyes, but I really think this is where Rob's original point on this pod is really important to remember. Like the G League Ignite, the Overtime League, this league, that league, these new projects are missing one thing: the brand that comes with college basketball.
Yeah, that's true.
The television exposures that come with college basketball. And so that's where, not college basketball, the sport, but what college basketball has created over time. The establishment still ends up ruling. And if a kid can make money off that and see his brand rise, where maybe he's not always making money off that brand, but that he's going to once he goes pro, that's where the McCabe and the McClung, like, when a random sports fan watches McClung, they might think of Mac McClung, the overtime influencer, Mac McClung this, or Jordan McCabe this. But what maybe gets lost in the equation is the reason why you're watching them in the first place is because college basketball's on television.
Yes. And it's also, this is going to be the time for most of these guys that they are the most brandable, so to speak, that they have the biggest influence on people, so to speak. Like if you are, let's just go West Virginia, Miles McBride, right? Right now, there are probably a lot of West Virginia fans that will want to buy something because it's endorsed by Miles McBride. If he ends up leaving in 2 or 3 years, right down the road, and he's on a bench somewhere for an NBA team, maybe he's playing overseas, wherever he is he going to have that same kind of impact? Probably not. So
exactly.
That's kind of where I think it comes in, is like, yes, look, they're students, and there's complications that are inevitably going to arise from having people in this situation having access to that kind of money. But it's also the time in their life when they are the most brandable, most recognizable, and it's going to be the peak of their popularity, and not allowing them to tap into that is not fair. Give me another team that you're into.
I'm worried about friggin' over branding. You know those things, those advertisements you see on Instagram where you're like scrolling up and you just keep seeing. I'm worried that that's going to be like super big when you guys are able to like take endorsement money and you just constantly see people selling you things. That's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, when you just see 37 straight man,
exactly,
college basketball players, like,
it's just like,
okay,
oh my gosh,
you guys, congratulations. Give me another team that you're all in on after this offseason.
Well, All in. I mean, there's a difference between being totally all in or I'm intrigued. Okay. I'll go with intrigued. I'm not going to go totally all in, but the team that I'm most fascinated by, actually, in the Big East, this might surprise some people.
Might be the same damn team.
But it is Marquette. It is Marquette.
Nope.
Yes, it is Marquette, and I'm going to tell you why. Not necessarily just via transfers. I mean, they've brought in Olivier Maxence Prosper from Clemson, who was a former 4-star kid. They've brought in a couple other guys, but what I see with this team is almost via transfer is Shaka Smart's been able to take a couple of kids that were going to go with him to Texas, and he's bringing them now to Marquette. He's got a Marion Ellis coming in, a 4-star kid. He's got a 3-star kid named Cameron Jones that signed, and Marquette was already bringing Stevie Mitchell, the 4-star point guard, and by many accounts, it sounds like he's still going to be part of this equation. So for me, I think that Marquette, like everyone, if you've been a college basketball fan for a long time, you know that 10 years ago, when you thought about the NCAA tournament and teams that were probably just going to find a way to make it, Marquette basketball was one of those teams. They were one of those teams. They actually got the benefit of the doubt at times. As opposed to the last 7 or 8 years, they've been the team that falls flat on their face, can't make a tournament run, can't do much at all. The Steve Wojciechowski experiment did not work out. People do not realize Marquette is a top 10 spender in college basketball, like nationally. They spend a crap ton of money. They spend more money than any program in the Big East Conference. Like they put money, they just churn out money in Milwaukee to try to win. And guess what, guys? They haven't been pulling their weight. Now they have a coach who understands. I'm not saying Shaka Smart's a world beater, but he understands what it takes to make the NCAA tournament. And I think Shaka Smart, his best fit, in my opinion, is a mix between VCU and Texas. Marquette's going to be, I think, the right fit for this guy. He's from Wisconsin. He gets to go home. He can recruit kids over there. There's never been a question of recruiting. And I think the Big East kind of has an open door. After number 1 next year, Villanova's number 1. If I ask both of you who you think the second best team in the Big East is heading into next season, I think you would both have different answers because guess what, guys? All 3 of us would. The Big East has a ton of uncertainty. In a world of uncertainty, I kind of like a first-year coach coming in and maybe the other coach is not knowing a total scout on him. I'm a little bit bullish on Marquette to be able to be a top 6 team in the Big East and hang around next season in Shaka Smart's first year. I think Marquette can win. They have the assets to win. They didn't have the coach to do it.
I like them long-term with Shaka. I think your point about them being that being a better fit than Texas. I mean, look, Shaka is not a great offensive mind. What he is very, very good at developing a culture and very good at taking that culture and turning it into something that produces on the defensive end of the floor. The problem with Texas, you have to go out and get the 5 stars. You have to get the best players in that state. And those guys aren't going to be in school for very long, whether it's like a Jarrett Allen. I know Mo Bamba's not from Texas, but a player like that, a Greg Brown. And it's very difficult to play the way that Shaka plays his best when you don't have those guys that are getting up to 21, 22, 23 years old. I think when Shaka was at Texas, he built a lot of teams. I think Shaka, to succeed, needs to be able to build a program and build a culture, and I think he's going to have the chance to do that at Marquette. Day. So the next one that I have on my list, this might be cheating a little bit, but I am going with UCLA, assuming that Johnny Juzang is coming back. After seeing the run that they made and seeing how well that they played and seeing how well they bought into the ideals of what Mick Cronin wants to do, I've pivoted. I didn't think that was going to be a very good fit. I didn't know how it was going to work for him in Westwood. And now I've gotten to the point where I'm like, okay, I think they're going to be really, really good for the long term. I think UCLA basketball is back. And the idea of next year, if we can get Chris Smith, Johnny Juzang, and Jaime Jaquez as the 2, 3, 4 on a team coached by Mick Cronin, oh boy, watch out. That team's going to be good.
Yeah, bro. I love the way Mick Cronin his team played toward the end of the season, man. They were like so exciting to watch. And I I'm one of those people that hates to watch ISO basketball. I enjoyed every bit of it watching Johnny Juzang play. Like it was, it made the end of the season a ton of fun to watch. So,
all right, you got anyone else, Day?
I had Syracuse on there from the Big East. Excuse me, not the Big East, ACC. Excuse me. Man, Buddy Buckets was amazing. And they just brought in Cole Swider from. They just brought in Cole Swider. So, I mean, to me, I think that they'll be one of the most interesting teams to watch. You'll have them. You'll have Samir Torrance. You'll have Joe Girard. Like they'll have a good bit of their guys back. Who did they lose again this year? They just lost somebody.
Quincy Carrier is transferring, and Alan Griffin is going pro.
Yeah, there we go. So I think Cole Swider will be. I mean, he was helpful for Villanova for sure. I think he'll have a bigger role with Syracuse to showcase his talent. I don't know if he'll.
Well, they need him to catch
Buddy
the shoot ball.
Yep, exactly. They need that spacing in the court.
Yep.
But we got a chance to see what the majority of their offense will be, which it was that last year with Buddy Buckets just putting up shots and just having him come back this year. Everybody knowing who he is, knowing what to expect, and he'll have a small target on his back. I feel like, but when you have to play against a player that just that can shoot the ball as well as he does, it's almost like, you know, he can have a target on his back, but you have more of a worry as a defender when you have somebody that can just shoot the ball from as far as he can.
Is Dolezaj back for Syracuse? Do we know what's going on with him?
I am not 100% sure on. I don't know if I don't think he's made anything official.
Nah, I was going to say nothing's official yet.
Okay, because obviously, you know, he was great for Syracuse in that win over West Virginia. Yep. He was just terrific moving the ball. You know who's another team?
Day.
The entire team. Don't worry about it. I'm still recovering. I shouldn't even have picked them to tell you the truth, but
in the world of hate down in the DMV for Mark Turgeon, I am here to provide some light. I mean, come on, folks. Like, Maryland has picked up Fats Russell, who is a beast of a player. Like he is. I cannot wait to watch Fats Russell in the Big Ten. I think he's a killer. And against fellow Big Ten guards, I think he's going to be a must-watch type of player. And by the way, Big Ten, ACC, figure out a way to give us a really good Maryland, Duke, Maryland, Carolina type of game early in the season next year.
You don't want to see Maryland Georgetown after Georgetown stole Kudus Wahab?
Nah. We need that Maryland Duke vibe would be awesome, especially
in the
with Wahab down there.
Maybe in the Big Ten, Big East. But I'll tell you what, that's the other one. Kudus Wahab is a man possessed, and I'm not just saying that. I think this kid could be a pro.
For sure.
He's an elite finisher. He quite literally dominated the Big East tournament, and then he transfers to Maryland. Brutal. And then said, and I got to call my man out here, okay? He was asked why he transferred to Maryland, and he talked about educational reasons. Kudus, or as I know him, Q, you were at Georgetown University.
Yeah. Like, what are you talking about?
Do I need to say any more? Look, I get it. I hate that he's transferring away from Patrick Ewing because I love that. I mean, I guess if you're a Georgetown fan, I'd be puzzled because it's like, what? We just won a Big East championship. Like, we've got the pieces here. Dante Harris at point guard, that kid's not going anywhere. But you know what? He does bring in a couple of bigs. Not that was going to take away from Wahab's time, but it would have created more competition. I think for Georgetown going forward, like what happens after Kudus Wahab? Well, they've got Ryan Mutombo coming in. It's going to be fun to see Pat Ewing coach Dikembe's son. But for the long term, like that's tough on Georgetown. Maryland got a lot better. Kudus Wahab and Fats Russell are two of the top 15 transfers in my mind, and Maryland got both of them.
Yeah, I thought WU was going to get Wahab. We were in the mix. I thought we had him. But yeah, I kind of feel like transfers like that, there are going to be more transfers like that than what Rob and me were talking about earlier with like players just like not vibing with their team or a player being upset at a coach. I feel like there'll be more transfers because people don't want to compete with other players and they want to leave. Yes. Like that sucks. That sucks. Like to hear an answer like the reason I'm going to Maryland is because of school reasons. When you're at Georgetown, it's just like, come on, what are we talking about? And you hear all these bigs coming in. It's just like, all right, either you don't want to compete or Like I can't even find another answer. Like, is Patrick Ewing just that terrible to be around? I don't believe that. He's a big man's coach. Like, I feel like guys like Patrick Ewing and like Juwan Howard, if you're a big, it'll be the perfect person to play for. And you just came off of a Big East champion. It's like, it's confusing. But I feel like you have more of those kind of transfers where you have guys that don't want to compete for their spot. They just want to walk in and like just have a spot.
Yeah. So along those same kind of lines, the last one that I had written down was Auburn with some of the players that they're bringing in. Now, the big thing for me, like the big name is probably going to be Walker Kessler, right? But they also got the Jabari Smith kid coming in. JT Thor has declared for the draft. I don't think that he is. I would expect to see him back, I think. And the big one for me is going to be Alan Flanagan, who I think has a chance to be SEC Player of the Year if he does end up coming back. And then they got a whole bunch of little guards that are committed. And look, the key for them, they got the wings, they got the athletes, they got the shooters, they got the size inside. They have a lot of pieces that can make them be a really, really good team. Where they really excelled last year was when Sharif Cooper showed up and they all of a sudden had a playmaker that could get these finishers to be able to get the open looks that they had. Now, losing Justin Powell hurts. I think Cooper, I mean, look, he was a great passer. Dave, we talked about this a lot of the time.
Yeah.
He wasn't a great shooter and he was not very good defensively, and it kind of created limitations for Auburn long term. But
yeah,
if some of these guys they got coming, like they just got a commitment from Desi Sills from Arkansas, and then they have a couple mid-major guys coming in that are pretty good. So if those guys can step in and can be kind of creators and facilitators and initiate offense at the lead guard spot, then I think that they have a chance to be really, really, really good next season. If there's one thing that we know Bruce Pearl can do, he can slap a bunch of players together and find a way to make it all work, because that's kind of what he's done his entire career.